Awesome. Welcome everyone to our webinar today on digital marketing. Alex and Doug are our hosts. Alex, it's all yours.
Great. Hello, everybody. Let's go ahead and share my screen. What we are going to be covering today is some basic foundational concepts that have to do with your business's online assets, digital assets. So the first thing that I would challenge everybody to do is try to frame their minds in the perspective of your website, your Google business profile listing, etc. Think of any website on the internet where you or your business has an account. That is a digital asset, just like your business has physical assets, trucks, vehicles, etc. You need to know, and presumably know, where the keys are, where the insurance is, keeping the insurance up to date, etc., etc. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be identifying the digital assets. I'm going to try to leave you guys and girls with an understanding of these core platforms and an understanding of how to find and access these. My desired sort of outcome or takeaway from today's webinar is that you all can leave the webinar and go and apply everything that we cover here. This webinar is intended to be very practical so that you can apply it. Stay till the end. I'll have a little short link on the last slide that if you click it, you can make a copy of a sheet, a list, essentially, that you can take and go through the work of identifying your platforms, gaining access, and logging the username and password. So as I had mentioned, we have core platforms. What we're going to be covering are your websites, map listings, social media sites, business directories, and advertising services. Before we jump into it, who am I? My name is Alex Tiberi. I am the founder and president of aptDigital. I've been working in digital marketing and technology for over 10 years. I started my agency back in 2016, and in 2020, I really dove in and focused on the appliance repair service industry. Since 2020, we've worked with a lot of appliance companies, and we've helped them see a lot of success. So all the things that I'm going to be covering in here are really coming from that area of experience. So let's get a lay of the land. So these are the 4 categories that we're going to be covering today. And really quick, if anybody has a question, I'm going to be asking for volunteers once or twice. And if anybody would like to volunteer, share a little bit of info, it might make this a little bit more interesting so that we can pull up some of the stuff I'm going to cover for one of your websites. What you're going to need to do for me to be able to see that you're literally raising your hand in Zoom is look for that option to raise your hand. If you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. If I see that, I need to click it, and then you'll be able to speak. So with that out of the way, these are the 4 categories that we're going to be covering today. We've got your website. We have map listings. We're going to be focusing on the Google business profile. And in general, we're going to be focusing on all of the areas that have to do with the Google search engine results page. Website, map listings, ad platforms, business directories, social platforms, and hybrid platforms, which I'm all grouping into one topic. Let me go ahead and give you an example of where each of these platforms can be found. And also, some people might find this basic. So some people might find this very new information. It's very much a foundational topic. Okay, James. Yes, go ahead. It looks like you raised your hand with a question. There we go. Go ahead, James. James, you'll need to unmute and then you'll be able to speak up. Okay. James, I'm going to keep going. Once you unmute, feel free to jump in and we will get to your question. So really quickly, let's show you all where each of these 4 areas, 4 categories can be found in real life. So here is a search that I performed. This is a search that your audience, your market, your potential new customers are going to be performing. So we have ad platforms showing up at the top. Specifically, what I'm highlighting right now is a platform called Local Services Ads. And this is a Google Local Services Ads. And then what I'm highlighting right now would be Google Ads. They're 2 different yet slightly integrated platforms. Then in this case, we're seeing an organic website result. Before, we're seeing the local pack or the map listings. So the platforms associated with this area would be your Google business profile. And then as we scroll further down, we're seeing more of these website results. So if we were to cross-reference to this little sheet right here, we found the ad platforms, we found the map listings, and we found website. So let's go ahead and reference. We have a website right here. And now we're going to start pointing out some examples of these business directory social platforms, hybrid platforms. So notice that first organic result, this would fall into that category. Angie's List, another one that would fall into that category. Thumbtack, another one that would fall into that category. So the takeaway here is that I want you to think about the concept that you want your business to show up in every possible place that you can on the search engine results page. So right there, we saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 opportunities for a particular business to be able to have visibility on the first page of Google. 2 ad platforms, the map listing, website, and then we found 3 directories in those top 5 results. So the point that I'm trying to make, the thing that I'd hope for you to take away is that there are a lot of different platforms. And in order for you to be able to even have the possibility of having your business showing up there, you need to be able to know where the keys are. You need to be able to access. If you're doing this on your own, if you are hiring a professional contractor, agency, etc., you need to be able to have the keys either for yourself or to be able to hand over to others. So before we get into the content, I have a couple of pro tips. These are very basic things. This is the concept of just being able to access. So number 1, consider using password savers. Password savers are going to help you be able to remember passwords without having to remember passwords. You have to remember 1 password to access the password saver. And then from there, you will have the ability to just automatically log in to various platforms without having to remember those passwords. In order for this to be effective, you have to use the randomized passwords that these password savers will create for you. You cannot set password 1, 2, 3 for every single one. I do recommend industry best standard is 24-character passwords. Let's go ahead and get to pro tip number 2. The concept of what I call the Google account ecosystem. So the idea is for Google platforms, local services ads, Google business profile listings. There are more, but for the context of this conversation, these are the 3 major Google platforms. They're accessed via your Google account. So what you're going to want to do whenever you're trying to gain access to those platforms is you're always going to want to check in the top right of your web browser, and you're going to want to make sure that you're logged into the correct Google account that is associated with those platforms. Last pro tip, if you're to think about all those other platforms I was showing you, like the business directories, etc., you have the ability to set up an account with an email and a password that's unique to that platform, or you can simply link it to your Google account. With that being said, let's get into things. So what I want to start with is I want to start with the website. I want to help you all understand what the anatomy of a website is. Here is a place where if anybody is up for it, I would love for any volunteers, anybody that has a domain, has a website, any volunteers. I just thought it might be fun to actually use somebody else's website as the example. Feel free to raise your hand. David. All right. Let's make sure that David can talk. Okay, David. Can you hear us, or can we hear you, David?
Can you hear me?
Wonderful. Yes. Okay. David, what is your website's, first of all, David, do you think that your website is in one place or possibly multiple places? What's your understanding of where your website lives under the hood?
Yeah, yours will drain.
So it lives on, I guess, one hosting platform.
Sure. Yeah.
I actually do have a couple of websites for the business, which I'm not a big fan of, but kind of had to set it up that way.
Sure, sure.
But our main domain is set up, hosted on one hosting platform, and that's obviously spread on kind of all the different platforms you went through, all the different Yelps and Angie's Lists and all those point to our main domain.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's one thing that I want to pull out for everybody from what David just said is the hosting platform. One of the common misconceptions that I run into when speaking with people is the concept that the domain is something that's separate from the website. So this graphic that I'm showing on my screen right now is like a little chart or a diagram of the different connections that a domain can have. So up at the top, registrar is the kind of platform that the domain is actually linked to. But and then actually I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So we're going to pull email out of this conversation. We're going to jump straight into the registrar portion. So the registrar is where your domain is registered. The name servers are like air traffic controllers because your domain needs to your domain needs to be able to point to the various different areas that you may want or need. Email is one of them. The web hosting is another one. There are certain situations where your domain might be pointing to other places, but for the most part, the standard orientation is website hosting, email. The name server is what is controlling how that domain is pointing to different things. The web host is technically a server where files and a database live. You can host a website off of your home computer technically. Most of the time, you're going to 99.9% of the time, you're going to purchase hosting service from a company that has virtual servers, cloud-based servers typically. So again, registrar is where your domain lives. Web host is where your website files and database lives. And then CMS stands for Content Management System. Your content management system is essentially a piece of software that's bolted on to your website hosting that allows you to actually manipulate the graphics, the text, etc. I don't want to get too much further into the nuances of sort of these different areas, but the one thing that I want to point out before moving on is web host and domain registrar sometimes can be managed by the same company. This is another misconception and kind of challenge to help people understand is, for example, you might have your domain registered on GoDaddy, and then you also have a website hosted on GoDaddy. While it's the same platform within them, they are technically different segments. So it's important to understand there's a difference between a registrar and the web host. So how do you know, David, do you know, and sorry, David, I had muted you, just some background noise. I'm going to unmute you. David, do you happen to know where your domain is registered? And you're gonna have to unmute if
All right, so yeah, we're registered on GoDaddy. Our web host is SiteGround, and it is a WordPress website.
okay, great, great. So for those that don't know where their domain is registered, you're gonna go to whois.com/whois. What it's gonna do is it's gonna help you understand where your domain is registered, and it's gonna understand where the name servers are pointing from your domain to hosting. So by extension of reading the name servers, we're going to understand where the site is hosted. Here is an example with our website. You can see that our domain is registered at Namecheap and our host is SiteGround. Let's go ahead and David, what's your domain name?
www.appliance, KOA, that's Kilo Oscar Alpha.com.
All right. So let's see what the whois domain lookup is going to say right here. So domain is registered at GoDaddy. Name servers are pointing to SiteGround. So this is helpful for those that they purchased the domain. They might have pressed a button for an add-on for hosting. They're not sure. Maybe it was a year ago and they got distracted, or for whatever reason, you just don't know where the domain is registered and whether you even have hosting or not. So this is where you'd want to go. Is you'd want to go to whois.com/whois. Once you know where your registrar is and where your hosting is, then you can go straight to those websites. You can try different combinations of passwords that you might use. You can look for the forgot password options to be able to gain access. So content management system. David knows that he has his on WordPress, but maybe same situation. You need to figure out what kind of content management system you have. Builtwith.com. It's a similar website to the prior, and it's going to tell you the same type of thing. So this is what it looks like. Let's go ahead and take a look at David's site. So you're going to see a lot of stuff. This website essentially scans all of the technology that's associated with a domain. And if you scroll down enough, you typically are going to find mentions of WordPress. This one's a little bit different. Probably want to dig into the details there, but to give you a more direct and simple example, you're going to find a section called, pardon me. Oh, that looks like things have changed since I prepared things. Well, try builtwith.com. If you run into some issues like I just ran into, feel free to reach out to me and I can always help you figure out what your content management system. There are some more advanced ways to look into the code. It appears that Builtwith may have just recently, within the last couple of days, changed their interface. Let's go ahead and move on. So we've covered the website. Let's go ahead and move forward with map listings. So I shared the example of a search engine results page. I call this the anatomy of a SERP, search engine results page, abbreviated is SERP. So your map listings are going to be found right here. And again, in the spirit of this webinar, do you have one? And do you have access? If not, how do you gain access? So the first thing that you're going to want to do, if you need to check, again, this is very 101 stuff, so pardon me if it's not new. You're going to want to simply go to business.google.com, search for that. And then what it's going to do is it's typically going to just kind of jump you over to this page. You can also search My Business if you are logged in to your Google account. Remember earlier, pro tip number 2 or 3, you're going to want to check at the top right to make sure that you're logged into the correct account. Otherwise, when you search for My Business, nothing will show up. You'll find your profile right here where my cursor is showing. Simply click it and you're going to gain access. This is not always going to be the case if you don't already have ownership of your listing. One of the challenging things with the internet nowadays, if you really wanted to dig into this, go Google's term called Web 2.0. Web 2.0 is essentially a period about somewhere between 10, 20 years ago, where the internet kind of shifted towards aggregated content. So think social media websites, think Yelp, all these business directory listings. How do they get the content on their website? They go search the internet, they find information elsewhere, they pull it in. So Google does this with Google Business Profile listings. You may have never created a Google Business Profile listing, and then eventually, once you're around long enough on the internet, Google's going to create one for you. So you might find yourself in a situation where there is a Google Business Profile listing for your business, but you never created it. So what you need to do is you need to claim access. The screenshot is a little cut off at the top and the bottom, and it might be a little small depending on the size of screen that you're viewing this on. But essentially what you need to do is you need to locate your business's Google Business Profile. The best way to do it is from a desktop computer. You're going to want to search for your business name, and you should see it on the right-hand side. If you don't have access to it, based off of the account that the Google account you're logged into, then you're going to have the option to click this link down at the bottom that says own this business. If you click that link, you're going to be given some prompts to follow, fill out some information to be able to gain access to your Google Business Profile. And I'm kind of going through this content a little faster because some of it is very basic and I'm not sure where the levels are in terms of experience and understanding for everyone here. And B, I want to try to create room for questions and answers. So I encourage at any point, you don't have to wait till the end. If you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. If you had a question around the Google Business Profile listing or the website, now would be a very welcome time to raise your hand. All right. When it comes to claiming your business profile, you can only do it on a desktop computer when you are looking at the organic search results. So at least according to my tests, I searched desktop maps, and to give you an example of desktop maps, I'm talking about actually the maps.google.com or google.com/maps. If you search for your business here, I'm going to go ahead and just pull up any random one near me. So you can find the business on maps. Notice that you're not going to see any options for claiming ownership. This is going to be applicable across all of these other platforms or areas of being able to access the maps. So desktop organic is going to be the only way that you're going to be able to claim ownership. Okay. So we've gotten through websites, we've got through map listings. Let's go ahead and jump into ad platforms. So again, your ad platforms are local services ads, commonly referred to as Google Guaranteed, and Google Ads. So, how to access Google Ads? Go to ads.google.com. It's going to ask you to sign in. Whether you're already signed into your Google account or not, you can see on the top right of my screenshot, and I was signed in. You still have to sign in to Google Ads. If you're not able to, when you sign in, if you're not able to access anything, then that indicates that there is not a Google Ads account set up for that Google account. So if you know that you set one up before and you're not seeing what you're expecting, think about other accounts, other Google accounts or email accounts that you may have used when originally setting up Google Ads. Local services ads is going to be the same domain with the local services URL slug at the end. And when you log in, you're going to see a screen similar to this, or you might just see your account right off the bat. But again, how to access, where to find it, how to access. So ad platforms, pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and move on to business directories, social platforms, and hybrid platforms. So first, we're going to start with business directories. And what I've listed here is I've listed some of the top business directories that I would recommend that you make sure that your business, not only that your business has a profile there, but that it stays on your radar. And when you're thinking about managing your online platforms, when and if you ever get there, pay attention to all the rest of these platforms that we're showing. Make sure that the information on there is consistent with the information that you have on your website and your Google Business profile. So Chamber of Commerce, in order to be able to, so there's different chambers of commerce is in every market or every city or town. So you're going to need to identify your local chamber of commerce. And then once you find their website, you're going to be able to go through the process of making sure that you have an account, setting one up. With many of these business directories that are more localized, so those that I'm showing on my screen right now would qualify. You can typically call the phone number at the bottom, like on the footer of the website or the contact page, and you can just ask them, hey, does my business have a listing with you? When we get into some of these other ones, like some of these social platforms, they're bigger companies and they're not really going to have a phone support. But here we go. So these are some of the social platforms that are going to be really important for your business to have an account on. I've got URLs here for the specific areas for being able to access the sort of business side of these platforms. And for LinkedIn, I have a link for where you would go to set up a new business on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, you have to have a personal profile set up in order to be able to set up a business listing. Okay, so now we're going to get into one of the more interesting types of business directories or citations, we call these in the marketing world. And these are what I call hybrid platforms. So if I saw all the cameras of everybody that's attending right here, I imagine I would probably be seeing maybe one or two eye rolls. And I would say that the reason that there is that kind of feeling around these platforms is very much around the business decisions that they've made in what I'm labeling as a hybrid platform. So for example, Yelp is by definition a business directory. Its core sort of function originally was to be able to list businesses so that consumers are able to find them, read reviews, see pictures, etc. Functionally, the same as Google Business Profile. However, they decided to layer on an advertising sort of layer to their business. So that would be kind of the primary descriptor for me when I'm referring to a hybrid platform. It's where there is sometimes, I think it would be accurate to say like a bait and switch sort of approach to people from these websites, from these companies. But ultimately, there's at the core, your business is listed in a proper directory sort of fashion, but then there's a layer of advertising on top for that company to monetize their business model. Some other examples of hybrid platforms could be some of these traditional business directories where there is a premium level that you can pay into to have your listing show up on the top. All right, so in closing, I have this document right here, bit.ly/login list. You can go there, you can make a copy of this. Again, the idea is that I want you to be able to walk away from this webinar, and if you can't access all of these platforms that are the core platforms for your business, I would hope that while all this stuff is fresh in your mind, you move forward with filling this out for yourself.
Hey, Alex.
Yeah, please.
In regards to Angie's, I know there's a bunch of changes that's happened over the
Mhm.
last few years with them. I'm trying to hang there and follow along. So they have like a subscription sort of model, and then they
Mhm.
have where you can pay for leads. Um, am I summarizing Angie's properly, where they can provide you with leads as well as a subscription model?
I'm not too familiar with the specifics of the subscription model. My familiarity with Angie's is very much it's like a lead generation platform built on top of the business listings. Um, One of the things that I've found with these hybrid platforms is they make things so confusing.
I
So
am confused. Yes.
yeah, so for example, with Yelp, I can speak to that one a little bit more. With Yelp, you have to start with, well, you don't have to start, but you have these different options of a subscription to be able to do the most basic things, like being able to remove photos that other people posted on the listing, or be able to reorder the order of the photos. I think they charge something like $2 a month for that. And then you have another level where you are able to actually go through with what they call their cost per click campaign, which is their lead generation campaign. I can tell you that Thumbtack, which has recently been acquired by Angie's, their monetization model or their business model is one around a subscription. Um, but I believe that's tied more along the lines of, hey, you're going to pay this much per year and you're going to receive at least this many leads per month type of approach. I hope
So
that kind of answered your
I mean,
question.
I feel like having your name show up as you started out with in multiple places on that first page is an important thing. And so if you have a subscription with Yelp or Angie's, you may show up there on the first page farther down, right?
Yes. So, for example, here is perfect example of what you're just saying. Yelp is the top organic listing. So it would be very advantageous for appliance repair companies in this market to look at Yelp as a platform to possibly consider under an advertising budget. At the very least, make sure that there's some effort going into the Yelp listing and trying to get reviews, etc. I would say that there could be a whole masterclass on the nuances and frustrations of Yelp and some of those things I just touched on. But the takeaway is, yes, absolutely, Doug. I think that any business that is taking their online presence seriously should understand what some of the main searches are that their market performs, replicate those searches, and document the anatomy of that search engine results page. Know that things can change over time. So right now, Yelp is up here, but maybe as time goes on, East Bay Appliance Repair is doing a lot of work to improve their website's organic rankings, and they start showing up here. And maybe for whatever reason, Yelp drops down to the bottom of the first page.
So that can change too, but it almost feels like it's a bit of branding. Like often the cost to get a lead from Google might be cheaper than Angie's or Yelp, or if you can get it organically. So having your name in those places and putting a budget together to be on those lead generation sites, again, I feel like it's almost like advertising, like throwing up a
Absolutely.
billboard or doing a commercial on social media or something. Maybe it's still needed just to solidify that we are who we are, and you're going to find us in many places.
Yeah. One of the really important things for people to keep in mind, it's tied to and supporting what Doug was just saying, is, and there are studies that have found this, is that consumers, searchers in this context, they have different mentalities. They have different like psychology. There are some that are going to perform a search, not even read what's going on here, and they're just going to click message or get phone number.
Yeah, that's me.
There are some people that are like, I can't stand Google. I don't want to give them a penny of my dollars. I understand enough about this to know that if I click on one of these ads, Google's making money. I'm scrolling right past there, and I'm going to look at anything that doesn't say sponsored or ad on it. There are some people that are major Yelp users. They don't really, they might go straight to Yelp. They might look for the Yelp listings when they perform a search like this. So the takeaway here is that not everybody out in the market is going to pay attention to the first platform or every platform. They might be honing in on their specific platform. Me personally, I just happen to be a big time Google Maps user. If I'm searching for a business, I usually will pull out my Google Maps app and I just perform a search right there. So that is very much the basis of this position, to have your business show up in every possible place that it can, where people may be looking. There are some people of certain, I would say, probably older generation, where they go straight to Better Business Bureau, which I'm not seeing on the results page. Here we go, but they might just go to bbb.org. So,
and then that terrible thing you just said, things are always changing. Where Yelp, for instance, lands today might not be there in 2 months, or the Google map listing may not have the same effect because of changes from Google. And so you pretty much have to make sure you're covering your bases in a lot of different areas.
Yeah. And maybe this might be if people would find it interesting, this might be a good topic for a future webinar, which is, because we've laid the foundation here. We've identified the major platforms. We've given you the tools on how to figure out if you have an account on the platform and access it. And then one of the logical next steps would be to benchmark, to understand where do you lie? Where does your business lie compared to other competitors in each of these sort of platforms, or in each place within the ecosystem that these platforms have a spot for. Because it is a moving target, particularly the website results and the local pack or the maps results. These ones are very, what's the right word? Like a result of Google's algorithmic changes. So there's an algorithm behind all of this that pretty much figures out and determines, well, who are we going to show and where are we going to show them whenever somebody performs a search like this. While the advertising platforms, they're not necessarily influenced by algorithms so much. The influences on who's showing up and how often and whatnot really has to do with the behavior of the competitors, the other people that are utilizing those ad platforms. So that would be kind of a different topic, but very much there are very clear ways and approaches to understand where you stand and how that changes over time.
Can I ask you a Google review question?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm in a business networking group that isn't solely just appliances, and we're not also in one area. And as small business, and you get to know the owner, you get to know how hard they work and that they probably have a good business, but I can't be a customer. When they request us to leave reviews for them, legitimate ones where I can speak to the owner's character and quality, me in Connecticut and them, say, in Dallas, is that going to upset the apple cart with Google that I'm leaving a review and I'm not from that area?
I would say that the thing to focus on more so is what your legitimate interactions are with the business, and in your review, speaking to those. If it is, hey Doug, I want you to leave me a review, and then you leave a review and you're just like, hey, great service. Yeah, it should be more along the lines of something like, hey, I've been working with this business owner for many years, that kind of thing. With all that being said, on the topic of getting reviews, and the scenario that Doug is coming from is really coming from a place of, hey, I have a new platform, I have a new listing, I don't have many reviews, I want to build those reviews up. what I would encourage people to do is don't try to game that system. Just focus on doing great work, focus on wowing your customers, and then identify the appropriate places to ask for a review in person. You know, one of the things that I'm really trying to combat when I talk to people is there is no magic, there is no magic to this stuff. It's all fundamental basic business concepts. It's just a matter of the tooling that is applied to. So with reviews, do great work. You should be trying to create happy customers for life that refer you to other people. So just focus on that and then look at the places to add into your business process where, for example, you might ask for a review. You know, that's going to open up a whole topic for you to think about. Are we going to utilize the, you know, the automated softwares that come with your house call pros, and there's standalone softwares like Bird Eye and stuff to just automatically ask for a review? Or are we going to ask in person? Are we going to train our technicians with soft skills to be able to try to, you know, bring some level of relatability and, you know, human interaction, and then set the stage for, hey, would you like to leave us a review? Or would you be willing to leave us a review? We just had a siding project done at our house, and they were great. They were fantastic. We just finished up with them. They asked if we would be willing to leave a Google review, and I was just jumping out of my shoes ready to do it because they really blew me away. You know, they did exactly what I was talking about. We recommended them to our neighbors because, you know, we're essentially going to support them for life because of our experience.
Got it. So be patient. Don't force it. Don't upset Google. Don't get those organic, natural Google responses from your actual customers and build on that. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah. And I'd even take it a level higher and ask yourself, what are the qualities that I want my business to be imparting in our everyday operations and in our interactions with our customers? If you don't have an understanding of what that is, then, you know, it might be something to just kind of to earmark or to add to the, hey, you know, I need to really look at what my business's goals are, big picture, long term, and then look at what are some of these, again, what are these qualities that and characteristics that we're trying to embody in our business. And if people will take that sort of approach where you start with the high level concepts, again, I'll apply it to repairing appliances. Do you jump into how to change a part, or do you lay a foundation with understanding the concepts of how the unit works and all the different scenarios? Then when you understand the concept, all these little practical things are going to be much more straightforward and much simpler.
Love it. Thank you. You have a comment or question from...
Thank you. Sorry. T, come on over and unmute yourself. T, it looks like you're unmuted. Go ahead. All right. It might have been an accidental click by
Gotcha.
Vice. Any questions that anybody has? Anything that anybody might want to talk about, whether it's part of what I covered or even outside of what I covered? I would encourage you, by all means. The floor is yours. All right. Well, again, I would really encourage people to take what we covered today and I'd really encourage people to take what we covered today and apply it. Apply it. You know, I mean, this might take an hour less, maybe a little bit more, but these types of things are not going to be able to provide you with the most value that they can unless you put it into application. And I'm speaking from experience. I've read plenty of business books, and I need to go back to them to actually apply my learnings. So most of you, I think, most of you are already part of UASA, but here is a quick link to the Facebook group. I host a monthly roundtable chat. If you're interested, you can follow this link. The concept is kind of like Knights of the Round Table. Everyone has an equal seat. Talk about whatever's whatever's on your mind or challenges in your business, that kind of stuff. Any follow-up questions or anything like that, feel free to contact me. Happy to help.
Hey, Alex.
Mhm.
There is a question in the Q&A from Jenny. Curious if you can speak to Facebook at all.
Sure. Jenny, did you have any, I'm trying to find you so I can encourage you to unmute, but Jenny, did you have any specific areas of Facebook that you might be referring to? And
Oh,
boosting.
colleagues-
Okay.
do you see that?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
So
To
boosting.
boost or not to boost?
Yeah. So essentially what we're talking about here, the question is around Facebook advertising. A boost is, let me see if I might be able to pull up a example. Let's go ahead and try to keep it relevant. So right now we're on the United Appliance Servicers Association page, business page or group, pardon me. So just imagine that this is a business page. Or you know what, Jenny, do you mind if I pull up your company's Facebook page? Sure. What was the business name? Pardon?
Calvary Appliance.
Appliance. Okay. And then I see Lana, I will get to you right after this. Okay. So the question is around Facebook boosting. So what is Facebook boosting? You have organic posts. So here is an example of an organic post. This is just a post that was put up on the business page. So whenever you post, you have an option to boost. So what is boosting? It is advertising. So you are paying to take one of these posts and identify targeting. So I want to pay to get this post to show up to people that, and it depends on what targeting settings you set. You might set, I want this post to show up for homeowners between 35 and 65, and I want the ad to show up, between 5 p.m. and midnight or something along the line. We were talking about whether it's worth it. Yeah. So whether it's worth it to boost or not. So now we know what boosting is for those that don't know. So the question is to boost or not to boost. I'm going to answer this by providing a bit of an analogy between two types of advertising. One is a type of advertising that I'm not using this term in its traditionally correct way, but I call it direct response. So an example of direct response is these advertisements on the Google results page. You're going to find this in some other areas. The idea is somebody's directly communicating a problem they're trying to solve. I need appliance repair, and I need to find somebody that can provide appliance repair near me. So they've raised their hand in a certain area of the internet saying, I have a question, I need help, etc. And then the advertisers focus on that person raising their hand, and they set parameters for their advertisement to show up when that person is communicating that they need a solution to the problem. So direct response advertising is when somebody says, I have a problem, and then an advertiser says, hey, I can solve that problem. And it's linked by whatever they're searching. Facebook boosting or Facebook advertising would be something that I call it interruption advertising. So what you have to ask yourself, what do you go on Facebook for? And what do you think that your customers are going on Facebook for? This is actually not going to be the best example because this Facebook profile of mine is really just for business. So you're going to see very relevant stuff. But okay, I want to go on Facebook because I want to stay in touch with family. I want to be able to see how my niece is growing up. And I love dogs, so I subscribe to these Facebook groups that have like funny dog photos and videos. I'm going to Facebook because I want to check out my niece's birthday was last week or this last weekend, and I want to see some photos. And then all of a sudden, somebody jumps in front of me and says, hey, have you thought about LASIK surgery? First of all, I wasn't looking for LASIK surgery. Second of all, I don't even need LASIK surgery. I don't have eyeglasses or anything like that. So this is just one example of interruption advertising, which is for the most part, Facebook's advertising platform. And so Mark just says that he guesses it depends on your area. We have many Facebook customers here in Texas. So Mark, what I'm trying to put across is you have Facebook customers, but we're talking about advertising to the general audience that is on Facebook. So while you may have Facebook customers, that just means that those people, remember earlier in the webinar, I was talking about how different people on the internet have different areas that they tend to gravitate towards. Maybe they go straight to the ads. Maybe they go straight to Yelp. Maybe like myself, they go straight to the maps. Maybe they go straight to Facebook. So in that case, if somebody's going straight to Facebook looking for a service, they typically wouldn't. Hey, that's great, Mark. Mark said that he searches for services on Facebook at times, which is absolutely fine. But the thing is not everybody's doing that. And do you want to be utilizing Facebook? If you are able to utilize Facebook advertising to target those people that are specifically going to Facebook to look for services, then you've hit the gold mine. But coming back to Jenny's question, the targeting parameters and the whole approach to targeting and getting it right takes a lot of testing. And you're going to be disrupting a lot of people that are trying to look at their cat videos and try to see their niece's birthday party, etc., before you will be able to, if you will be able to, really get that those targeting specifics down. So for Facebook, what I recommend is I recommend a community engagement approach. So a community engagement, perhaps don't pay for ads, just share the okay, so Mark says perhaps don't pay for ads, just share to Facebook groups that are free and are for customers looking for services. My opinion, we don't pay for ads. Okay, so Mark is just now talking about the approach that I recommend on Facebook. But before I move to that, Jenny followed up saying, does boost just boost in your local area? The answer is no. If you simply press boost and then you're done, you are probably going to be boosting your post to the entire world. So if you are going to boost posts, make sure that you spend time paying attention to the targeting parameters. I think that probably this is a good opportunity to segue into my recommended approach to marketing on Facebook. So Jenny says she's hearing the answer is not to boost. I would say that the answer is don't think about boosting until you've addressed all the other opportunities for improving your business's online presence. Think about all those different platforms and try to create a hierarchy and a priority list. Boosting definitely could have a place, but it probably doesn't have a place until you've really, gotten the most that you can out of the other platforms.
I feel like it still kind of falls in that category of reinforced branding, right? Like this example of if you're on a lot of community pages, presenting yourself as an answer to someone saying, I have trouble with my refrigerator, and you're boosting in that area, they might, oh, that name just keeps popping up. Wow, they must know what they're doing if I see them everywhere, right? But yeah. It costs money and it sounds like a lot of work as well to make it be effective.
Yeah. And I would say that if you are going to boost a Facebook post, just really pay attention to that targeting parameters. Really pay attention to the location targeting parameters. Make sure that it's just people in your service area that are seeing it. And I will say that there is a form of Facebook advertising that I do recommend. It's not boosting, unless you're creating a post that would be specific, the message would be specific. It's a concept called retargeting or remarketing. It's only really going to work for those of you that have larger businesses. And the idea is that you place something that will be able to understand when somebody goes to your website and understand when that person did not contact you. So they went to your website, they didn't call you from the website, they didn't fill a form out from your website, they didn't, whatever forms you have for being able to have people contact you through the website, they did not perform one of those actions. They go into a pool and you're creating an audience on Facebook that you can target advertising to. That's why we call it retargeting. They already have some level of awareness of who you are, and it's safe to assume that they already have some level of intent for needing the services that you offer, but for whatever reason, they didn't contact you. So you can place an ad on Facebook that kind of follows them. And they can say, hey, we're here just if you need it. This is like if you had a shop, let's say you had a cookie shop in downtown, somebody walked into the store, they looked around, and they walked out. It's almost like saying, hey, you sure you don't want a cookie? You kind of looked like you're looking for a cookie. Anyway, let me move on because I'm seeing a lot of these questions.
Yeah. Did you see T's question in the Q&A? He says, I don't have a physical location with regards to Google Maps.
Sure.
And we have a hard time showing up on Google Maps in the cities we service. Any advice on that? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I have time, but what kind of time constraints would I be working with at this time, Doug, Sarah?
As long as I think we can keep this going a little bit longer. So let's see if we can get through these questions.
Cool. All right. So let me get to T-Vice after I just close this whole Facebook thing. So Mark was pointing out the way that he utilizes Facebook, and this is definitely the way that I recommend utilizing Facebook, is find the community groups and provide helpful information. Find a community group. Somebody will typically ask for a recommendation on an appliance company. Don't be salesy, but just make a presence in those community groups. Do great work. Wow your customers. They're going to start referring you in those community groups. All right, so let's go ahead and jump over to T-Vice's question. So I have a question about Google Maps. We do not have a physical location, and we are having a hard time showing up in Google Maps in the cities we service. So first of all, when Google Maps, Google Business Profile listings are inherently going to be at a disadvantage for service area businesses that do not have a storefront or an office that's publicly accessible. When we talk about websites and Google Business Profile listings in the framework of SEO, search engine optimization. So this is the practice of doing the things that need to be done so that those two online platforms show up at the top when people search for what you offer. So Google Business Profile listings, websites and GPPs, they have ranking factors and they have conversion factors. A ranking factor are the things that you need to do to get it to show up higher. And a conversion factor is the things that need to be on that platform so that once somebody is actually looking at it, that they contact you. So what we're talking about here in T-Vice's question are ranking factors. So again, the question is, I have a service area business. It's hard for me to rank. What can I do? You have to understand that businesses that have their address published are going to be at an advantage. That's a stronger ranking factor than being listed as a service area business. So you might think, oh, well, let me just publish my address. I don't mind if I put I work from home. I really don't mind if I put that out there. Here's where the conundrum is Google has rules that say you cannot post your address publicly on your Google business profile listing unless customers can show up to that address unannounced and conduct business with you during the hours that you have posted. Some people might say, oh, well, I'm okay if somebody wants to knock on my front door, like my wife is the CSR, she works from home, and we'll happily serve them. We're really getting into some nitty-gritty stuff here. Point being is that if you're service area business and you publish your address, eventually you will get suspended because it's breaking Google's rules. There are ways to essentially fight back with Google and make your case with Google to get your listing reinstated, but that's getting a little bit more into compliant listings and the process of reinstating suspended ones. T-Vice's question is more around the concept of ranking factors. So we've established that you're at an inherent disadvantage if you're a service area business. So what can you do? Number one, consider renting an office, even if it's a very small office. Consider getting a legitimate case to be able to publish an address. Depending on your market and depending on the real estate market within there, you might, in some areas, you might be looking at $500 to $750 a month to be able to lease out that physical location. Now you have to ask yourself, how many leads am I missing out on by having the service area Google business profile? How much would I have to pay in advertising to make up that deficit and compare that to what the lease costs? And yeah, Trevor's just sharing in the chat his experience with the suspension. Okay, so, and I'll try to catch up on these chat messages. I want to try to get to the heart of T-Vice's question. So that would be the first thing I would suggest for improving the ranking factor of your Google business profile listing. Do the math. Just do the math and consider the viability of renting an office space. Best case scenario, it makes sense. Worst case scenario, you've done the math and it's something that you can come back to a little bit later in your business's sort of growth trajectory or evolution. The other things to look at when it comes to ranking factors are things that we covered on the presentation. So, website. Make sure that your website is maxed out when it comes to search engine optimization best practices. Part of that is that you need location pages. You need service area pages, individual pages on your website that talk about what you do and where you do it. So think about the different cities within your service area. And that really needs to be part of your website and SEO, website SEO strategy and plan. The map listing. So you need to make sure that your Google business profile is sort of, in the marketing world, we call it optimized. So you need to make sure that all the different configurations and settings and choices and whatnot are done right, and that you're not missing any of those. You don't have any of those holes in your listing that are sort of like bringing on water, so to speak. Then we have the business directories, social platforms, hybrid platforms. Make sure that you have listings for all of these. There are more. I'd be happy if anybody wanted to follow up. I'd be happy to provide a list, a pretty comprehensive list of all these different, we call these citations, the overall category of business directories, social platforms, hybrid platforms, citations. So build out a good amount of citations. And from a high level, that's your answer, T-Vice. There is very much a lot more detail and a lot more depth that would need to go into those sort of categories in order for you really need to know what work needs to be done, which I'd be happy to cover in the future. But it's it's a pretty deep ocean, just like the nuances of appliance repair can be. All right, let me try to catch up on some of these questions or comments in the chat. Okay, so Trevor said, okay. Mark recommended to get a virtual office. So Mark, I'm sorry, but you just recommended it for everybody to break Google's guidelines. So virtual offices are in Google's guidelines that say they are not to be used. And if they find out that you have used a virtual address, they will suspend your listing. And the reinstatement process for that is going to involve a decent amount of admin work, and most likely are going to, yeah, again, deep conversation, but I will tell you, do not get a virtual office unless you want to be walking the line of, you know, like breaking the rules. All right, so we have Trevor said, Google found out we didn't have a physical location and pulled our listing with over 100 5-star reviews. Trevor, did you want to give a little context there? So did your listing list an address? And was that the what triggered, what you believe triggered Google to suspend your listing? Let's see. It did not list. Okay, so Trevor said that he didn't have an address listed and that Google found out we didn't have a physical location and pulled our listing. Okay, you ran off of a PO box. So PO boxes are the same as virtual addresses in Google's eyes. Yeah. So Jenny, oh yeah, Jenny was just really kind of echoing what I was saying. Okay, so it looks like we've just got some kind of chat about relating experiences. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, Wilmer Toro, can you verify a Google business with anything other than the 2 to 5 minute uncut video? Okay, so what Wilmer is referring to is he's referring to typically when you're creating a new Google business profile, one of the steps in that process is to verify that you are who you say you are, that your business is legitimate. One of the newer ways for Google to sort of determine that verification or perform that verification process is through video. And it's quite a challenge because what they want to see, if you're a service area business, is they want to see your vehicle. They want to see your vehicle with, with branding, with a wrap, with a magnet, with a sticker. They want to see you put your key into the door and unlock it. They then are going to want to see your work area. If you legitimately work out of your vehicle the whole time, then you can get creative and describe that in the video, that this is your work area. You work out of your vehicle. If you legitimately have an office space in your home, then they're going to want to see you on that video walk into your home, show the workspace. Ideally, you have things like like an actual workspace with a computer, business cards, etc. They're going to want to see you provide legal documentation on the video. Point being, there's a lot of stuff that they're going to want to see on the video, but it's a very short amount of time that they allow the video to be. So if you have issues with reception out on your front, on your street where the vehicle is, if you aren't quick enough with rehearsing what is going on with the video, it can be very challenging. So again, Wilmer's question is, can you verify a Google business with anything other than the 2 to 5 minute uncut video? We don't know specifically. I would say that when you are creating your Google business profile, that you ideally should have a business Google email. So info@yourdomainname.com. You should have a Google Search Console account set up and verified. The way you verify it is connecting it to your website. And there are some other best practices around what you are putting on the listing when you create it. And those things can make it so you possibly wouldn't have to do the video verification. Unfortunately, similar to T. Vice's question, there's a lot more nuance and detail that I unfortunately just don't have the time to be able to get into, but perhaps the content for a future webinar or sort of like workshop.
Well, thank you so much, Alex.
Absolutely.
It was a firestorm in the last 15 minutes, but sometimes we got to get our brain going into that direction. So
yeah, absolutely. No, I'm happy to help. You know, a rising tide lifts all boats. So I hope that this helped raise the tide for some of your businesses. Feel free to contact me. Happy to help. And I hope to see y'all in Orlando in January.
That's great. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it, everyone. And it's great to hear you might be in Orlando, Alex. So we'll make sure we get you connected with everyone.
Yeah, I'm planning on it.
And Alex, do you mind if people have questions, if we reach out to you, if they don't get your information, they can email us at administration@unitedservicers.com, and then we can forward it to you. Just if you guys want to make a note, Alex's email, since it's not a link, alex@aptdigital.io.
Yeah, and I'll drop it into the chat also.
Perfect.
Yeah, and if anybody was interested in the slide deck, I'm happy. Just reach out to me. I'm happy to share a copy of the slide deck. You know, any questions, anything like that, I'm an open book. So
Awesome. Well, thank you for the great information this afternoon, and thank you to everyone who participated. And Alex, Doug, we appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a great day.
Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.